These are 10 Call of Duty Black Ops 6 tips that you need to know when playing the new Call of Duty for the first time. These tips and tricks will help you level up faster, get better performance, avoid choosing the wrong unlocks, and most importantly, help you have more fun. A special thank you to Xbox for sponsoring today's video with PC Game Pass. PC Game Pass gives you access to high-quality PC games on Windows 10 and 11 devices. And you can play Call of Duty Black Ops 6 day one included in your subscription. With a low monthly cost of £9.99 per month, it caters to PC gamers who want a large library of games and day one releases. And you can learn more linked down below. First, let's take a look at our graphics and FOV settings. Performance is so important when playing on PC to ensure you've got the best frames per second and also consistency throughout various different areas in the map. Most commonly in FPS shooters, people like to crank down all of the visual settings to ensure they get the maximum frames per second and reduce the chance of any frame drops if something crazy happens on the map like an explosion. So very frequently, you will see players have pretty much everything set to low when they do play on PC. Now, obviously, there are multiple advantages to this, as we've already discussed. Your frames per second's more stable and also higher, so you have a way smoother experience spinning around the map. But also, it makes it easier to see enemies. If someone's hiding away in some foliage, like some leaves or in a shadow area, if you have all of that rendering way lower, you could obviously see them hiding in those darker areas in the map, and obviously the leaves haven't rendered in, so you could probably see them camping. Now, I personally like to have a balance between both of these, because at the end of the day, I do have an RTX 4080 Super, a 4K monitor, so why would I want it to look like it's running on a potato? So I often drop things down to medium or high. I like my textures to be on the higher side of things, so they look very next gen, but often things like shader quality, I'm happy to turn that down. It's quite an intense effect, and as I previously mentioned, people often hide in those shadowy areas, so it makes spotting those enemies just a little bit easier. Any filtering effects are also very GPU demanding, so I might turn those down or disable them, just like I was doing with the shadow quality. Same's also true for any water effects. You can crank these down because you can see the enemies in the water better potentially if those are lower, because it's not got all the fancy sort of reflection going on. But one setting you do want to keep on for water quality is water caustics. Currently, there's a little glitch with some graphics drivers where water will flicker like crazy if you disable this, so just leave this on for now for best results across all the different maps. While we're in the graphics tab, let's take a look at our FOV settings. This can be found under the view subcategory. By default, this will be set to 90, and it's easy to forget to change it, especially if you're coming from another Call of Duty, you just assume all of your settings have transferred over. Not always the case. In past COD games, I've ran my FOV at 120. This is how I used to roll it on Call of Duty Warzone, like the Verdansk version, the first version of that. When I had, like, not to brag, I had a gold M4 on that one, mate. I was a right pro. But more recently, I've been quite liking 113 within my FOV. This expands the field of view so you can see more things happening around you, and also it just makes the Omni movement and stuff like that feel faster, if that makes sense, because you've got more wider field of view, so your character just feels like it's moving around the map faster, but less motion sick because it's not as tight, so you're aware of the peripheral a little bit better. It allows you to play the game for longer, especially if you're close up to a screen. Have a play around with the field of view that suits you, depending on the size of screen you're using, how far away from the screen you sit, and also whether you have an ultra wide, because that's going to have a pretty crazy field of view by default anyways. Trust me, from past experience, ultra wide or super ultra wide is insane for Call of Duty. A couple of other things you may want to change within this menu is your ADS field of view. You can switch this over to affected less visual recall, which will just reduce, the shake. Plus, you can also change your camera movement to least 50%. This will reduce all of the camera bobbing and just stabilize everything on the screen. Above these parameters are also motion blur. You can toggle these on and off if you don't want to have weapon motion blur when you spin around and you would rather your weapon just sort of stayed in focus. A little bit like Counter-Strike, where it just is like a bit of a stagnant weapon in front of you, so you can actually focus on your crosshair a bit better. I personally leave this on because it looks pretty cool. Next, let's talk about the perk system in Call of Duty Black Ops 6. Players can select from 3 different categories of perk: Enforcer, Recon, and Strategist. Each category is aimed to benefit a particular playstyle, whether that be increased movement, better stealth, or special damage resistance. You can choose from 3 perks inside of your custom classes, and each perk is color-coded depending on which category it falls within. Eventually, after you've unlocked most perks in each class type, if you choose to run 3 perks from the same category, this will then unlock Specialists. Inside of the custom loadout menu, you can see a full breakdown of each of the combat specialities. Probably my go-to and favorite is the Recon one. Suits my playstyle best. A pro tip that is worth knowing, you can unlock something called Perk Greed. This lets you run 4 perks instead of 3 as a maximum. Plus, 2 of these perks can be in the same perk tier. And when you finally prestige, you'll have the option to have 1 permanent unlock. So you'll prestige, pretty much lose everything and then obviously start the game again. But you can choose one unlock to remain. That's permanent, so it's definitely worth potentially grabbing Perk Greed as one of those ones that you retain when you do Prestige. This will just make leveling up way faster, and also your loadouts will be OP, mate. Next, let's optimize our HUD elements for the best possible information. Going over to interface inside of our settings, we can choose different presets for our HUD elements. It's best to jump into a game to preview each of these presets because they'll appear directly on the map that you're currently within, and you can see exactly how they'll be laid out on your screen. One of the best presets is Mission Interface, or either Magnified. Mission preset will be basically the default preset that you have, but it will switch out the rounded minimap to a square one, which gives you just a little bit more data in the corners of the screen that's obviously cut out from the circle. But if you choose to go for Magnified, this will actually increase the size of everything on your screen, including the overall size of your minimap. So I guess it isn't really a minimap then, it's just a map. So the map will be quite big in the corner. You'll then want to make sure, if you do choose Magnified, to change the mini-map shape from round to squared. This will then give you that additional information in the corners of the mini-map so you can catch any enemies that aren't potentially on the radar when it's circular. Also, inside of your HUD setup, you can customize the colors of both player tags and also crosshairs. Now, this is the first time in Call of Duty you can actually change the color of your crosshair, which is awesome. While still in the gameplay HUD menu, you can scroll down to crosshair. You can turn this on or off. If you then press show more, you can customize how this crosshair is displayed, including its color. You can literally choose any color you like with a hex code. I've currently been playing about with a bright pink one. Also, yellow is quite good, at least for me. I think it pops quite nicely in the middle of my screen. But this isn't the only color that we can change. We can also change the color of the enemy player tags. By default, these enemy player tags are red, which most people can see okay, but on some maps it does blend into the environment. You can customize this to be any color you like. Again, you can set this to something like pink or even like a green, and these pop like crazy then on all map types. And this drastically does help improve spotting enemies, whether that be far away or if they're hiding somewhere, because that bright, vibrant color pops up as the enemy name. Boom, you can see them, no problem at all. Next, we've probably got one of the biggest learning curves when it comes to Call of Duty Black Ops 6, and that's the OMNI-MOVEMENT. Now, I personally am a huge fan of the OMNI-MOVEMENT. I think it feels great, and also it's freshened up the gameplay, and it's also added a new skill curve that people have to learn, because everyone's running around slide canceling like for every single Call of Duty for like the past 4 years. This has now added a new degree to the gameplay, the pacing of the gameplay, and everyone's sort of at ground zero, because the character moves completely differently. OMNI-MOVEMENT adds 6 degrees of motion to your character, and basically you can sprint in pretty much every direction. You can like sprint sideways, sprint forward, sprint back, and it just feels really... Your character feels like lightweight is the only way I could describe it, but in a good way. With this new movement system has also came lots of new ways to manipulate your character and maneuver them around the map. Now, probably one of the biggest debates when it comes to playing Call of Duty is, should you use a controller or a mouse and keyboard? Each playstyle has its advantages, which we will discuss, but I personally like to transition between the two. And because of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate and the inclusion of PC Game Pass, this means within that one subscription, I can play Call of Duty Black Ops 6 either on my Xbox Series X or on my gaming PC. And because of Xbox Cloud Saves, I've got cross-platform progression, so all of my levels, loadouts, and settings remain the same whether I'm on PC or Xbox. So, now let's talk about loadouts, and specifically the fastest way you can level up your weapons. Each weapon has its own level rank in Call of Duty Black Ops 6, and you have to progress through the weapon ranks to unlock camos, attachments, and various other things. This is great because it adds a lot of progression to the game, and you can master individual weapons and just constantly be switching stuff out for a new challenge. Even though you're playing the same old maps, you can be using different weapons, and it keeps things fairly entertaining. But the biggest question is, how do you level up these weapons as fast as possible, especially if you are a new player? Because when you first start off, you have your 5 preset loadouts that have got some attachments on there and some, little things like stims and so on, but you don't unlock all of that straight away. As soon as you unlock custom loadouts, you have hardly anything at your disposal. And that's why I often choose to run these default loadouts for quite a long time. They're decent. They've got a good sight on them, some attachments. You've got the stims that are super useful for like regenning on the go. And then you can wait until you're about rank 18 and 20-ish, where you've unlocked some of those lethal weapons and tactical grenades and attachments for weapons, so you can have a decent little setup. Either way, you can do what you like. You could run a custom loadout straight away as soon as you unlock it, or keep rocking the standard ones if that's beneficial to you. Either way, once you finally build out your custom loadouts, there's a few things you want to do to test that they're good and also to get more XP on those weapons. Firstly, let's talk about boosting your weapon XP. If you equipped the tacticals and lethals, both smoke and also scrambler, this will give you constant XP when you're on the game. So if you just start throwing smokes around the map, this will mean every time someone kills someone in your smoke, you'll get assist. So that assist will count towards the weapon XP, helping you rank it up. If you also have scrambler on and you throw these around the map, same again. Whenever someone gets a kill or something in that region of the map, you'll get assist XP on your weapon. Then if you have your friend use the field upgrade assault pack, this will allow you to replenish the ammo of your tacticals and lethals. So they can throw that down, they get XP for you getting ammunition from that box, and then you can keep throwing your smoke grenades all over the map. The assault pack is the first field upgrade that everybody unlocks, so your friends have no excuses to not help you out here with this grind. And the scrambler, you unlock it around level 18. For the smoke grenade, this unlocks at level 17, and it's definitely useful to be aware of this to just farm some of that weapon XP, especially while you're trying to get the gun to a half decent level with the best possible attachments. After you have built out your custom loadouts and weapon configurations, you can now jump into the new firing range and also the practice course. Now the practice course is on protocol, which has loads of little dummies that you can shoot. This is very useful for practicing Omni movement and getting used to the new movement system and understanding how that flows on a map. But the firing range is amazing for seeing how good your weapon customization is. So you can see the overall time to kill of your weapon, because the dummies actually take the same amount to die as roughly an enemy in multiplayer. So you can see how effective headshots are, body shots are, depending on which weapon configurations you choose. You can also test the recoil of these weapons. It's absolutely amazing. It really does help you get a true understanding of how these weapons are being impacted by the attachments that you're putting onto them to increase your overall knowledge within the game for building out loadouts in the future as you become more experienced. Now let's talk about score streaks, or what used to be called kill streaks. These are effectively the cool things why am I explaining it? Everyone knows what a kill streak is. It's Call of Duty, mate. So these are the score streaks that you have available in Call of Duty Black Ops 6. By default, you'll have your little Scouts Pulse, which is just literally like a personal USV that you've got access to. But as you gradually proceed, you'll get the iconic RCXD and the more intense things like the Dreadnought. And probably one of my favorite is the Chopper Gun. This is just class. In every Call of Duty, that's the best kill streak. As you can see, you unlock these at different levels, depending on your progression in the game, which is obvious. But my tip when it comes to score streaks is to choose them dependent on your player ability. It's very easy to be like, right, I'm gonna go for this score streak that requires me to get like 25 kills or something stupid to unlock it, but it's super class, but you're not good enough to go get 25 kills. You may as well set out your score streaks to be usable within the environment that assists you to get on within the game. So for example, you might want to have some easier to attain score streaks at the lower end that will allow you to get nearer to something in this higher end up here, like the Interceptor or, the Harp. Then you can leverage the score streaks to increase the scores and points that you're gathering. Then you do gradually get better at the game because you live for longer, you get more kills, and then and naturally over time you can then increase the threshold of those score streaks and where they trigger and have the really hard ones to attain at the end because you've improved as a player. But as you first start off, maybe keep it at the lower end, so at least you're getting that XP, you're triggering it, you're getting all the different XP on the UAV when people are getting kills and you get all them assists and stuff. There's lots of different ways you can use these to help yourself rank up. Some more important settings for people who are playing on Windows and a gaming PC. This is going to be centered around your mouse and keyboard. Now, I literally built a brand new PC for Call of Duty Black Ops 6, got myself a new GPU, new CPU, went to town on this bad boy. But obviously, when it comes to a new PC, you've got to install Windows, you've got to get all your drivers for your mouse and keyboard, and one key setting I forgot to tweak, and I'm a tech YouTuber, was mouse acceleration. If you go into your mouse settings on Windows, you want to make sure that this box right here is disabled. Mouse acceleration is fantastic if you are using a PC for productivity or browsing the internet. Effectively, mouse acceleration will change the sensitivity of the mouse. It will speed up or slow down depending on what you're doing with the actual mouse itself. Obviously, for a video game, we don't want this to happen. We don't want our DPI or our sensitivity to be fluctuating all of the time. We want our DPI to be set at whatever we set it to, and then that means whether we move fast or slow, the in-game sensitivity of our character is predictable. So you want to disable this to make sure that your mouse movement is completely native. In addition to this, there is also the software that goes with your mouse and keyboard. I personally use I personally use Logitech stuff, which has Logitech G Hub. Inside of Logitech G Hub, I can create different presets for my mouse and keyboard and also adjust the DPI curve. But because I use this mouse in particular, which is the Superlight Pro 2, this has got a 4K sensor inside of this thing. So inside of the G Hub, I want to make sure that I enable that polling rate at a way faster. In fact, I think it's even got an 8K polling rate now in a recent update that they did in summer. Either way, you want to make sure you jump into the software for your mouse and keyboard and ensure that it has those advanced features enabled. So effectively, you've got the fastest refresh rate for your mouse, the fastest response rate for your keyboard, and even any custom presets you can make. You could disable some keys, you could rebind keys to do different stuff. And what I like to do on my mouse is actually equip stuff to these side buttons here. To reduce the amount of finger motion I have to do on my mouse and keyboard, I like to equip quite a lot of my lethal buttons to my mouse. So for example, when I press the middle mouse button, this will throw my grenade. So I don't have to press the E button on the key. This means I don't have to remove my fingers off of the AWASD stuff. I can keep those central, and then I can just press with my little finger here, boom, throw the grenade, launches the grenade. On these side buttons as well, I also have these set to be melee and also slide. So if I press one of these, it'll punch the guy in the face. Then if I press the other one, it means I can do my sliding. This reduces me having to go down and press the C key on the keyboard. So again, removing my finger off D, which controls my movement of my character, or having to press Control. Just seems to work a bit better with Omni movement because you need to be triggering that sliding and that diving at the same time whilst pressing in the direction you want to go to, because we're no longer just going forward and back like in the old Call of Duty. We can now go sideways, either way. So we need to be on those keys still whilst also being able to press and trigger our dive and slide. And I guess this now transitions us perfectly onto some gameplay tips. So if you are playing with a controller, these are some of the best settings that you may want to change. So first up, we've got the horizontal and vertical stick sensitivity. Because of Omni movement, the pacing of this multiplayer game is much faster. So in order to keep up with people sliding all over the map, you may want to increase these to any value between maybe 6 to 8. Now, if you aren't too comfortable with high sensitivity, you may wish to keep the vertical stick sensitivity at default, but definitely increase the horizontal stick sensitivity to around 7. This will mean you can track players much faster going left to right, even if you're not too bothered about going up and down much faster. So if someone's sliding, you can track them much quicker with your stick movement. So right down at the bottom of this menu, you'll also see your dead zone inputs. Right here, you want these values to be as near as 0 as possible. Depending on how new your Xbox controller is, this is the brand new Black Ops 6 Special Edition one, will determine how close you can get to the value 0 because of the actual stick drift that's occurring within your controller. If you've got a super duper old controller, you might obviously have a bit of stick drift in there, so you might have to mess around with the dead zone to keep it relatively accurate. This is a brand new controller, so I can reduce these as low as possible, you know, around 1 to 3 is a particular value in both the left and right stick for the minimum. This is just basically going to reduce the amount of motion the stick has to have until it triggers and starts actually inputting data into the game. Same as well for the triggers. You can mess about with the dead zone for these triggers, get these as low as possible or wherever you find it most comfortable. So basically where you press that trigger in, it actually starts shooting or aiming in the game. Depending on what this value is here will determine how far you have to press that button in before it actually inputs something into the game. Next, we then want to go into the aiming tab and scroll over to advanced aiming settings. Here we can change the aim response curve type from standard to probably dynamic is the best for Black Ops 6. You can see to the side of the screen, it explains exactly what each of these settings are actually doing to your controller, but effectively you're just changing the shape of the curve and how the response input happens when you move that thumbstick, whether it's linear and straight, whether it's got a bit like an S-curve to it. As you can see, we have a reversed S-curve mapping with dynamic that is suited towards more of a fast paced sort of gameplay. So we're going to have that set there, and you'll notice these control settings will instantly feel much better. But again, this is all personal preference. Go ahead and play around with all of these, which is why there are so many different options, depending on which is your preferred style when it comes to your controller input. And then of course, if you haven't already, you want to make sure you've got ADS, aim assist enabled for controller players, because this is obviously one of the biggest advantages of being a controller player. It helps with melee because you sort of lock onto the target, so it makes it much easier to hit those accurately, and it does help a little bit with those faster locking on with some of the headshots. When you're brand new to learning the maps, you want to play the position where you only can see 180 degrees of the map. So for example here, you can see on the map that I have got this wall behind me. So I don't have to worry about anything behind me at all. I just have to assess what's happening basically to the left and right of me. So it makes it much easier that I'm not going to get shot in the back, shot from the side. I've literally just got to assess the area directly in front and to the side, which makes it much easier to command a position on the map. Instead of being exposed from a full 360 of degrees, you're only exposed from 180, exactly what's in front of you. This helps you get higher kill streaks and score streaks while you're actually learning the map layout and just how the pacing of the game actually works. I don't need to worry about anything behind me right now other than literally to my left and right. I can just assess the area while progressing up the map. This is a huge tip that you can do. You can see that guy right there was just running right down the middle, and I just shot him straight in the back because his back was exposed and he would have to spin around like that. So this is just a great way to just get, same again, that guy slid straight through. It's not even like camping or anything like that. It's just actually playing the position on your map way more tactically, so your line of sights are just simpler. Another huge setting it's very important that you need to change is surrounding the audio settings. Now, by default, all of the music will be enabled, which is really irritating. This means when you launch to the game, you'll have all the dramatic theater music like pounding away, which is cool when you're loading into a map. It's pretty epic, but it does take a long time to fade out. So you'll then eventually get into the game, and it'll take maybe a minute or so for that music to completely disappear. So you can't hear any footsteps whatsoever for a good portion of that first round. So you want to make sure that you head into your audio settings and expand on your master game volume settings and scroll down to gameplay music volume and also cinematic music volume. You can turn these all the way down to 0 and it will remove all of those additional music effects, so you just get, all you can hear is footsteps, shooting, grenades, nothing that's, even when like something happens in the game like dramatic, it might have some intense music play halfway through. That just throws you off from when you're trying to be competitive. So you want to turn all of these down so you can just focus on what's important, which is your enemies. One final setting that I want you to change is in regards to the finishing move. You've probably seen all over the internet these funny clips of people holding people up as basically like a body shield or a meat shield and then saying something funny down the microphone. Oh, the f***ing thing's ran out of battery. You gotta be joking me, mate. You gotta be taking the piss. But probably in your game, every time you melee somebody, it just punches them, or it does the standard sort of old Call of Duty takedown. Well, inside of your settings, you want to go over to combat and then go down to combat behaviors and click advanced settings. Inside of here, you can now customize exactly what happens when you initiate the melee. Down here, you can see there's a setting called body shield / finishing move behavior. By default, this might be set to just do finishing move only or prioritize finishing move. You want to tweak this to be prioritize body shield. This now means when you initiate that melee and you press and hold or whatever when you're taking someone down, it will take them and hold them as a meat shield inside of the game, so you can actually run around with the map with them instead of it doing the cool animation like old Call of Duties where it would take them down. This is something useful to know. I didn't find out about this until I played the game for about 20 hours. And then I was like, oh, and then I started seeing those clips on the internet. I was like, where's everyone getting that setting from? I've not got that setting. Turns out I did. I just needed to jump into my combat behaviors advanced parameters. Don't forget to check out all of the info linked down below for PC Game Pass, where you can play Black Ops 6 Day 1 along with a bunch of other high quality titles. But if you want to see me build my brand new PC for Black Ops 6, you should check out this video next and subscribe to the channel for more videos just like this one.